What are some of the things what you would rather say from off the shelf you can tell people that how can I optimize myself?
I believe comes from belief.
There are so many different concepts about sleep.
I would say if you're a very physical, active person, that creates a lot of stress upon yourself. Sure. When people in the biohacking space are like, I have to do, it's what you've got to put into that person's head. Like if they do not get the last couple of reps, that gun goes off.
Hello everyone, I'm super thrilled today because I have got maybe a celebrity or more than that, a person whom I would rather say anyone in the fitness and the biohacking space look forward to. That kind of a celebrity is there with me today, and we're going to have a interesting conversation on some of the aspects. And of course, we met and we have been spending some good amount of time in the World Biohack Summit in Dubai. And I'm totally impressed. And also the entire crowd was wowed by what this gentleman has shared with them. And I'm talking about none other than Kris Gethin. Kris,
Thank you very much.
welcome to the show.
I appreciate it.
Kris, we are talking about human performance optimization, and we are talking about an optimized human. When we talk about an optimized human, you are a person who has coached and helped a lot of people to optimize themselves. What are some of the things what you would rather say from off the shelf you can tell people that how can I optimize myself?
Got it. Okay. Well, a lot of it, I believe, comes from belief.
Okay.
You know, you have to have some belief, and people are quite quick to look at what they can't do, the negatives in their life. You know, we see it with social media all the time. People look at someone else's social media and now they feel inferior. They don't have the things that person has.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we are our worst critic, but I think, you know, the belief in yourself that you can achieve if you do believe is very, very true. You know, that if I think of the things that I've accomplished over the years, you know, when I was younger, you know, growing up on a farm in Wales, I never thought that I would achieve any of these things because I didn't have the belief. You know, of course, we all do have imposter syndrome, you know, but you have to remind yourself, you know, quite frequently, no, I put in the work, I put in the consistency, the quality of time and study to actually come to this position. And a lot of the clients that I deal with, you know, maybe they're out of shape, but it's usually because of some sort of inferior complex, you know, or insecurity. But sometimes those insecurities can be very, very powerful for some people. You know, a lot of bodybuilders, for instance, they have this shell, this armor that's around them that helps cover that, you know, that inferiority that they have within.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. So, you know, you get
So
a
you
lot
mean to say that they build it to cover the inferiority?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. You know, they have the insecurities. Maybe they were bullied in school, and you know, you'll find when you speak to these people, they're really nice people. They're very gentle, even though they're huge, they're massive.
Yeah, I have also experienced that. Yeah.
And I just find it's interesting. But that then gives them the purpose to get better and better. But they're never happy with what they've achieved. You know,
Really?
they never look back in the mirror and think, yeah, I've done everything that I wanted to achieve here.
Yeah.
And I think that can be good because it gives people the purpose to always try to better themselves to a certain degree, as long as you can be happy with that. Because, you know, if you think about the people that retire, you know, then not long after, maybe they pass away because they have no purpose, and the universe believes, well, they're not reproducing and they're not working, then we might as well
They have
discard
nothing in front
them.
of them. They're not seeing anything in front.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a big part of it. As I mentioned in the talk yesterday, you know, in Okinawa, one of those blue zones, they don't have a word for retirement, and they believe that is one of the reasons why they live to a disproportionate age. They just still have that purpose. And of course, they're active. You know, you see a lot of those blue zones as well. They're villages that are on a steep hill.
Yeah.
So they're always walking everywhere, up and down those hills. And my grandparents lived in a place called Knighton in Wales, and that was on a steep hill. And, you know, my grandfather just passed away a couple of years ago in very, very good health at 93, you know. So I do believe there's some aspect to having the purpose.
Is that the inspiration for you to focus on sleep?
For sure. You know, it's one of the reasons, you know, rest and recover. That's our body's ability to detox. You know, our brain loses about 50% of its mass, its weight during sleep. and then obviously we rehydrate, and that is allowing our body and our organs to detox. So if
Yeah.
we don't go through that autophagy, we don't clean up the bad DNA, the folded proteins. So sleep not only is great for, like I mentioned earlier, your heart rate variability, your stress levels, but it's great for detoxification.
Now, when it comes to sleep, Chris, there are so many different concepts about sleep. There is a school of thought which believes that you need to have a specific time on which you need to sleep every day, every night. So, is that a good idea, or is it the duration? Like you should sleep for 6 hours. That means you go to bed at 12, suppose, and you wake up at 6, or wake up at 7. You go to bed at 10 and wake up at 4. So it's a duration or a fixed time. What is that you recommend and you generally suggest to your clients?
Yeah, it's usually a fixed time because
Fixed
you
time?
want to create good habits. And, if you give yourself an inch, you'll usually take a mile. So that 8:30 turns into 9:30, that 9:30 turns into 10:30. So I think it's good to have a strict adherence, but don't get overly stressed about it. I always find it
Yeah.
comical when people in the biohacking space are like, I have to do this in the morning, I have to do the red light, the ice bath, and this, and if I don't get it all done, it was a waste of time, and they stress themselves
Absolutely,
out,
absolutely.
which is contradictory to what they're trying to achieve. So I believe sleeping at the same time, of course, if you can, dependent on that person, if that person's very active, then of course they're not living like a normal person, then they definitely should try to get the 8 hours sleep. But a lot of people, when I start working with individuals and I ask them to start tracking their sleep, it's usually around 6 hours.
6
That's
hours,
where it
yeah,
usually is. And they've just become used to it. Your body adapts. You eat McDonald's every day for 30 days, and now they wouldn't know any different. They may have got the
Absolutely,
brain fog the
absolutely.
first day. They may feel a little bit nauseous, but the body adapts, unfortunately and fortunately. So, yeah, the same time, and obviously measuring the quality of your sleep, which we can do now through quantification.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you mean to say that 8 hours sleep is a must?
I would say if you're a very physical, active person, that creates a lot of stress upon yourself, sure. But it could be a little bit less, if you're not putting your body and your central nervous system under so much stress. And
Yeah.
obviously there's a lot that goes into the sleep hygiene. Not everybody has to do this, having the blackout blinds. I like to have a weighted blanket because I think of it as being nurturing and comforting. Maybe it's my inner child. I don't know, but it definitely helps me. Having a grounding sheet, wearing the blue light blocking glasses a couple of hours before bed, staying away from screen time,
Right, yeah.
reading a good book that's kind of relaxing, all these things, and staying away from caffeine, especially if you're slow caffeine metabolizer in the afternoon, and relying on other things that like nootropics, peptides that can possibly give you a bit of a bump if you need it.
I know that you go to bed by around 7:30, or not around 7:30.
Correct.
Yeah. So by doing that, aren't you missing some social functions and social gatherings?
Yeah, yeah. Everybody's different. Like my wife is very, very sociable. So, that's absolutely fine. I'm not so much of a social butterfly. I like my routine. And I think maybe it's because I grew up on a country, on a farm. I was an only child for the first 9, 10 years. And I found adventure just in the fields and just, making dens and spending a lot of time by myself. And I noticed that I never liked team sports as a child. I raced
Okay.
motocross, then I raced mountain biking, then I did bodybuilding, then I did Ironman, and then ultramarathon. All these things that are individualized. And I think that's just part of my character trait.
Yeah.
Now, we may say we need social contact, we need human contact. That's fine. And I do get it, but I don't need an abundance of it. I'm fine living in a different country away from my family. I visit them a couple of times a year. Maybe that's why we get on, actually. If I was there all the time, we'd probably be at each other. But I think everybody has their different characteristics, and you just have to feed to your particular needs.
In between, when we were discussing, you were talking about the imposter syndrome. I think a lot of people right now, especially after achieving certain levels in their life, many of them are going through this process of imposter syndrome. I won't say process, the problem or a challenge of imposter syndrome. I'm sure that as you are a person who is working with well-accomplished people in various fields,
Yeah.
you must have come across this situation, right?
Of course, like nearly all of the, like, for instance, we can talk about celebrities, like actors. Most of the top actors have major insecurities, and they feel like maybe it's an imposter syndrome there as well. They still get exceptionally nervous, going into, public events. Because I think these people are better in front of people as opposed to with people. So, when the camera's rolling, it's not so bad. But when they actually have to do the interviews and the engagements and the interaction, that's when they really feel those insecurities come to fruition.
I know many people who go through this process of this kind of a challenge called imposter syndrome. The main thing what comes and hits them is that they start finding that whatever I'm doing is nothing great. There are other people who are doing much better than me. Even to the extent that they start thinking that, am I faking? Am I a fraud? So and they don't realize that they are actually into an issue. They are into a problem. I know many entrepreneurs who are going through this process. They say that I'm completely outdated. I don't think I can do it again. So what kind of approach you take on this kind of people?
It's definitely an outside perspective is what they usually need. I need to be told every now and again, you're doing a good job, you're doing it for the right reasons. A decision that you may have made that was very difficult and awkward is the right decision, because you're going for your gut, but also have the connection with your brain as well. You're not just going by the feeling. So this is why I like to read books. Sometimes I get more from books than I do from people. I like to listen to a lot of podcasts because it allows me to think outside the box and have a different type of perspective, and having some form of positive love towards yourself, because as I mentioned earlier, we always look at the negatives, what we're missing, what we don't have, as opposed to what we do. And I think it's because we all as humans live in a world of thoughts of scarcity as opposed to abundance.
Absolutely.
And when you live in abundance, or think that you live, should be living in abundance, then those good things usually come because you're putting that positive intention into the universe. So a lot of it is, I honestly do believe that I feel more like a life coach and a therapist than a personal trainer.
I always feel that, because even though people consider, or maybe they should be looking up to you in terms of your fitness and in terms of the way you have trained many of the celebrities to build their body. But I think when I started talking to you, I realized that you are more of a brain and mind man, and you are always talking about the neck up. So that's why I kept on asking the same question, that about the imposter syndrome is a neck up issue.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, and I think you are a strong believer and a propagator of the concept that, only if you can get your neck up portion right, you can actually have the neck down portion right?
Yeah, you have the control there. There's no doubt about it. You have to, from my job, when I'm working with people, I have to understand, okay, if I'm working with a celebrity in person, I've only got them for an hour, in the gym, maybe 5 times a week.
Yeah.
The difficult part is when they leave, for the other 23 hours, because now they have the doubts, now they have the insecurities, now they have the social gatherings. So that's why you just always, in the beginning, it's like a boot camp. Like, they have to send you pictures of what they're eating, how much they ate, at what time they ate it. So it becomes obsessive thinking after a while, but then you can kind of slowly take a step back, because now it's become more habitual. And the other thing that I think is very, very important by getting inside the person's head is that about 99% of the people within the gym train to absolute failure, but that 1%, so 99% believe that they train to absolute failure, but they don't. They could send me a video, or I could be there with them in person. I know they have, for instance, several more repetitions in them, but they believe that they've pushed themselves to failure. But it's only that last 1 or 2 repetitions that you really struggle on, as if someone's got a gun to your head.
You will do
That,
it.
yeah, exactly. That's what you've got to put into that person's head. Like if they do not get the last couple of reps, that gun goes off. And
Yeah.
once they start to feel that failure, because it's uncomfortable, no one wants to be uncomfortable, and it's exceptionally uncomfortable, but you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I always say, if you find failure within the gym, you will find the success that you're seeking from an aesthetic purpose, but that discipline of doing something uncomfortable will allow other areas of your life that are uncomfortable become more comfortable.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, because it's the brain always try to work in that familiarity zone, which the brain is familiar.
Yeah.
And it doesn't want to come out and, it doesn't want to move through a path which it doesn't know.
Yeah, it always looks for the easy way out.
Yeah,
Like if you're
the path
doing
of
a
least
curl,
resistance, yeah.
after a while it'll start asking for your lower back for assistance, anything to make it easier on this particular area that you're working.
Now, how do you establish that neuromuscular connectivity in a proper way?
Well, we talked a little bit about this
Yeah.
earlier, but just to reiterate, so of course, I'll give an anatomy chart to the client or ask them to seek an anatomy chart, have it up somewhere, maybe on the fridge or somewhere where they're going to see it on a daily basis, but study that to see where the origins and the attachments of the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, what are the direction of the fibers. So, the upper pecs, they go a little diagonal, then the mid, they're horizontal, horizontal, and then diagonal or down for the lower pecs. So they understand when they work in these particular areas, okay, there's 3 parts to the pec. I'm not just working the whole pec. So I'm isolating various areas to create more separation from one muscle group
Yeah.
to another muscle group. And that's what, for celebrities in particular, create that illusion on screen. They may not look very big in person because they need to be agile. Maybe they do their own stunts. But on screen, they look larger than life.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
People say they must be on steroids.
Yeah.
But if they knew, for instance, how heavy Riddick is, for instance, he's like 69 kilos when he's very, very lean. He's a very small person. But the illusion
69.
is 69 kilos when he's
Hrithik
when he's
Roshan,
in lean
yeah.
shape for a scene, for instance. But people will say, well, that's steroids.
Yeah,
He looks huge.
yeah.
It's all about illusion. It's creating the illusion and getting that mind-muscle connection to create that separation and full muscle bellies.
So it's more of visualization, and like when I'm working out on a particular, muscle, I visualize that specific muscle.
Yeah, of course, because everything becomes automated and you don't have that mind-muscle connection to properly contract a muscle. Much like if you're driving and then you're kind of daydreaming,
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're like, how did I get here?
Yeah,
I can't even
absolutely.
remember.
Yeah.
It's the same thing because we're so used to distraction. We're never really one with ourselves that we're distracted from what we're trying to do. It's like, people usually overeat because they're not conscious of their senses, smell, taste, texture, color, etc.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden they finish their meal like, what else can I
Yeah,
eat?
yeah.
Because they haven't been conscious and present during that process to digest and absorb.
Yeah, like the way you are driving the car and you are actually pressing the brake without your knowledge.
Yeah.
So I believe the same way, once you train that neuromuscular connection, after some time it will happen automatic, right?
Of course, 100%. You create that path to begin with, then you create a single lane, double lane, freeway, and that's neuromuscular pathway now has been engaged.
But I think many people want to be like Kris Gethin, but you have got 30 years of training, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's most important. I think, guys, I'm sure that this short discussion must have given a lot of insights. But at the same time, it's 30 years of hardcore training and 30 years of knowledge and wisdom. That is what Kris is carrying with him. So thank you, Kris, very much for joining me in this show. Thank
My
you
pleasure.
so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.